What's going on? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Tech Productions. Today, Banker up joined again by Fluff, Nick, and Jake.
What up?
Hey.
And me.
And we're going over the Gohan deck in the sense of just kind of going over what we feel about it when we go over these cards. And, check it out and see if this deck holds up to anything to the last two decks we talked about. Actually, 3 decks we talked about. And like always, there's buttons. Check them out. Let's get into it. The leader itself, Son Gohan, very standard. When this card attacks, you draw 1 card, and then the awakens either 4 or less, or if your opponent has a red pan SH card in play. You draw 2, flip over. We talked about this in our Discord. It feels like they're going back to a lot of just drawing for awakens. I think I've been seeing that a lot more lately than anything else.
Oh, a lot more, yeah.
Yeah, so far there's only one leader that's a hybrid, but everything else that has been shown is draw 2.
Which isn't a bad thing, and we can talk about that later, how we feel about that in another video. On the Awaken, it is Son Gohan, Unflattering Power. Auto wins return when your red Son Gohan SH or Piccolo SH cards attack, you draw 1 card. So this means it doesn't necessarily have to be your leader attacking, which is pretty nice. At the end of your turn, choose to one of your red Piccolo SH cards, switches to active mode. And then auto once return when your Piccolo Power Beyond Awaken activates a blocker skill or is removed from the battle area by an opponent's skill. At the end of the turn, add cards from your life to your hand until you have 4 life left, and add up to 1 red Son Gohan SH Z leader from your deck on top of this card.
Yep,
So
It awakens twice. You go from REM sleep to light sleep to fully awake.
This seems really good because the Z leader, if I recall correctly before we get into it, it's a 2/2, and you don't gotta pay for this at all. You literally just go, I'm gonna pass my turn, have this Piccolo block for me, and then I can immediately at the end of this turn go into my Z Awaken.
It's essentially an energy-free Z Awaken, which is always fantastic. If you look at decks like Majin Vegeta, where there's no energy cost attached to them Z Awakening. But yeah, Gohan, they're just really good.
Yeah, it's pretty historical now. There's been enough toppings with the leaders. There's a ton of... If the leader has a free Z Awaken, it's going to perform very well just from the consistency it provides, and I see no difference for this as well.
Assuming it's not like a weird deck like that, what was it, 13 and 14 androids that had like a Z leader that was only 15k? We're talking like good 20k strong Z leaders when we say this.
Yeah.
And I skimmed over... Front side, you go down to 6. That's why you go down to 4 with this one. If you're already at 4, And let's talk about the Z leader then.
Which just real quick before we talk about the Z leader, having the leader take you down to 4 is great in case your opponent is trying to slow roll you out. Like if your opponent is trying to stall you out so you don't have access to your super combos or other different cards that the Beerus Ball or stuff like that. They don't want you to have access to that. The leader is just going to do it for you.
And so the Z Awaken, Son Gohan Awaken to Beast, which is going to be an amazing holo card when we get it, or reverse holo, whatever, is double strike naturally in 20k, which is already really good. And if your opponent somehow is able to steamroll you very early on, or you can't get a Piccolo for some reason, Z Awaken is 2 red energy, and your life has to be 3 or less red Son Gohan SH card. Then, if you place 1 card from your Z energy in your drop, when this card is placed in a leader area, place up to 1 special beam cannon inherit power from your Z deck into the battle area. So once again, another free way of playing cards. This deck's gonna be really good, actually.
Yeah, it sets up the special beam cannon for free. Like, what's not to like about that?
And then when this card attacks, you draw 1, and at the end of your turn, choose all of your red Piccolo SH cards and switch them to active mode because, they have blocker.
And then this leader is base 20. It's permanent double strike. Like a lot of Z leaders, some Z leaders have a conditional double strike. Like, oh, if you have this and you pay 1 energy, get 5k double strike. This card is just going to be a threat from the moment it hits the field.
Yeah. And I don't think, not even that, but the fact that this deck, as we get to the other cards we'll see as well, is so consistent in how it brings everything you need to the board or to your hand. So that way you don't have to worry about getting a bad draw. Like, if you get a crappy mulligan, that's not a problem. The deck will fix itself for you just by playing the Z cards. And in this case, in the leaders, when they go into the next stage. This will free play your Z extra card for you.
Yeah, it almost feels like a Yu-Gi-Oh deck the way this
It
is
does.
so consistent because we haven't seen too much of grabbing specific cards. Like the only time I can recall is the Gokul card for the Gotenks deck, and that was tremendous for that deck. That saw a lot of play, and just having cards where you can specifically target stuff, it's going to be wildly consistent.
And you had to see that card in order to benefit that card. This from the leader will set you up, which is pretty nice. Well, let's go over the 2Z extra cards in this deck. We'll go over the first one, which is what you need to actually awaken in the first place. Battle with the Red Ribbon Army. It's just a picture of Gohan's glasses as if he's looking through them. I don't know about this art too much, but we're not talking about the art here right now.
It is his glasses.
Yeah,
I didn't know what this was. I thought this was like the barbed wire at the top of a fence.
This may receive an award for the worst art ever displayed on a card. And there's a character in this set that was printed that has no art on the card, and this is worse.
Well, let's wait till we see the full art. The foil it'll get rid of the box and it'll probably look better.
I think the foil will make it look better, yes. But at the same time, I was just really thrown off. Like, this is just his glass, like him looking through his glasses. Auto, limit 1. If your leader is Red Sun Gohan SH card, and you have 2 or more energy, when this card is placed in the battle area, you play up to 1 SS Sun Gohan all-out explosion from your deck, and play up to 1 Pan SH card with energy cost of 1 from your deck to your opponent's battle area. Then you shuffle your deck afterwards. Like I mentioned earlier, deck is super consistent. You're really just paying 1Z energy, and from here on out, you get the card you need to your opponent's battle area from your deck, and then you get the Gohan as well, which is really good. And then auto place 1 card from your hand to the bottom of your deck, and remove this card from the game. When your Piccolo bestowed power is played, add up to 1 Piccolo power beyond awakening from your deck to your hand, then shuffle your deck. And without going further, that's just the next tier. It's like a 1 cost evolve onto this Piccolo you already have in play. So like more consistency in this deck. Like this deck will just get you going. And what makes it so good is that you're pulling all the cards out you need to make this deck run. And then that way you're drawing to all the cards you want to see that you're teching in.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think of this card as a 1-drop plus 3.
Yeah. Yeah, initially.
Yeah, and you don't even need to really see much of your opening hand with your mulligan. It leaves you wide open and can see a lot of pieces, different pieces or late game stuff, just because you're guaranteed to find Gohan, you're guaranteed to find Pan, you're guaranteed to find your evolved Piccolo. Like you get a lot of value for 1 energy off this card.
It does also require 1Z, so there is a little bit of hand investment, which I think was smart to do instead of making this kind of like text on the leader somewhere. You know what I mean? Like it was good that it's not an out and out plus 3, but it's still a really strong way to start the game.
Moving over to Special Beam Cannon, Inherit Power. Activate battle for 1 red energy. Your red Sun Gohan SH card is attacking, and you remove this card from the game. Choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards with 35,000 power or less, ignoring barrier. KO it, then choose 1. Either choose up to 1 of your red Sun Gohan SHZ leaders and he gets plus 20,000 power for the battle, then remove this card from the game at the end of the turn. Or choose up to 1 of your red Sun Gohan SH cards with an original power of 30,000 or more, and it gets plus 15,000 power in double strike for the battle. What I do like that this card cannot be used during your defensive step, because it has to be 1 of your Gohan SH cards as attacking to get this activate battle off. But outside that, like, this is just good on good. Like, you're free playing this card, and now your opponent knows either you're going to have a really powerful double strike leader or a really powerful battle card with double strike coming at you at some point.
Another thing to note about this card is not limit 1. This card does not limit the amount of times you can activate this card. So as long as you have copies of this card in your Z deck and you have played them onto your side of the field, you can swing with your lead and pay as many energy as you want for plus 20k combo power. So if you put like 3 special beam cannons on the field, which as far as I'm aware with Z extra cards, you can do that. Right?
I think so.
They're not fields. I don't see any text on here that says you can't.
I haven't seen anything that says that you can't do that. And then you swing with your lead, you pay 3 energy, get rid of all 3 special beam cannons. Your leader is now an 80,000 double strike without spending any cards in your hand.
It is one of those things where, yes, like you said, Fluff, that's definitely possible. You would need early turn to set that up. And I think at that point, you're telling your opponent, if you let either one of these 2 attacks go through, I'm cracking these cards.
That's great, because then the Gohan SH cards that you're playing later are now the cards they're going to get through and in the game.
Yeah. So, like I said, the deck pulls what it needs. That's a good card to pull out for free.
And contrasting to the other Z extra card, this art is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And this is going to be a great card when it's foiled as well. Moving over to the 2 cards that are needed pretty much to awaken. Pant. We have 2 of them in the deck, in this archetype. They both have a permanent where this card can only attack or be used in a combo if your leader is Red Sun Gohan SH card. And when this card is played from your hand, you draw 1 card, which means when you play it to your opponent's field, they're not getting a draw off the Glimpse of Strength. And for the other card, when this card is played from hand, they don't get that effect either. But if you, as a Gohan player, play this card, you look up top 5 cards of your deck, add up to 1 red battle card with an energy cost of 5 or less, and SH in the character's name, and add to your hand and shuffle the deck afterwards. Both decent cards for you to play on your turn if you feel like it, but they give your opponent no benefit at all playing to their side of the field, and then they can't get rid of the card. Unless they have some weird tech that allows them to get rid of their own cards using skills. But outside that, it's sticking to the board, and that way you can maximize your other cards later on the road.
Both are decent turn 1 plays.
Can I just say that Glimpse of Strength is just Glimpse of Talent that got the zoomies?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I like the card. It does what it does. I like the effect of it just sitting on the board. We've seen decks back in the past where they've kind of hinted on or teetered on where you give your opponent a card and they can't do anything with it, but the opponent could eventually some way. This just sticks and can't really go anywhere. And I like the consistency fact of that, where it's that card is not moving.
Although I know personally, I was pretty frustrated by clone tokens during like the 18 and like the 18 mil era, you know, where like you have all these goofy cards on your field that you can't do anything with, and it's like clogging up your board, and there's no way to get rid of them. I think this is kind of falls into the same way, but it's so vital for the way the deck works. I don't really know how they'd implement it other than like the turn this card is played, it can't be comboed, and then that just gets really confusing.
Well, from what we've read so far, you only play 1 on the opponent's board with the extra card, and there's no real other way to do it. So it's just going to be 1 little girl to sit on your board, as opposed to 30 tokens that just look weird. So
Yeah,
it's not going to be anywhere near as convoluted.
God, it was so annoying.
Also, I want to point out how of a shift they do from set to set, because in the current set, we got Polku, which will put the Gohan underneath your opponent's leader. And then you get benefits if your opponent has the Gohan underneath their leader. In this case, like, yeah, just same mechanic, just put it to their field instead. We'll leave it there.
Yeah. I do like the kidnap mechanics in Dragon Ball. It's one of the more unique things going on in the card game, honestly. Yeah. But I'd like to see them I like to see them more in the way of putting cards under my leader or into my Z deck or something, rather than them sitting on my table. Just because I don't want to accidentally steal cards at the end of the game, you know?
Yeah.
Especially at a regional, and then you're all the way across the room.
And we don't see the deck, but this is also one of those ones. Actually, I don't think it matters. I'm going to cut that part out. All right. Going into the Piccolos, we're going to start with the one that doesn't benefit the Z extra card, but is a 1 cost to play. 3-drop Piccolo with a new student. It's a blocker. When this card attacks, use up to 1 Saiyan or Earthling card, both mono red, with 5,000 combo power from your drop, and combo skills negated for turn. Fantastic. It helps you set up your Z energy for yourself. And then the activate main, limit 1 for 1 red energy. If your opponent has a red Pan SH card in play, you play this card from your hand, which is pretty nice. And the one that does benefit the field card, Piccolo Bestowed Power, blocker. When this card is played, choose one of your opponent's battle cards, and it gets minus 20,000 power for the turn. Then activate main for 1 red energy. If you have 3 or more energy and your opponent has hand in play, you play this card from your hand. So both of these are very cheap to play. It just depends on what turn it is. And being able to neg a card by 20 power, I think is pretty good.
When we first initially saw the reveals for this, and we just had day 1, so we got the 2 Piccolos. And it was like, God, you're not going to be able to activate the Z Leader Awaken until turn 3 because the Piccolo bestowed power. Your opponent, you have to have 3 or more energy, and your opponent has a red Pan SH in play in order to play it. And then day 2, we got the other Piccolo. And it was like, oh, okay. Now it makes more sense. And now the deck feels a lot more fluid for the inclusion of that card.
And I will say both on the Awaken side and both on the Awaken side and the Z Leader have abilities to restand either one of those 2 cards, which is pretty nice.
Just a quick thing that's jumping out to me about this Piccolo bestowed power. It actually lines up really well against Piccolo the Infiltrator. So if your opponent plays Piccolo the Infiltrator, plays a Pan to the board, and then doesn't combo it off during their turn, you can just pay 1, play this guy, and minus 20 the Infiltrator, because they have a Pan SH in play.
It has to be a red Pan SH.
Oh, it does say red?
Yes.
Oh, okay, never mind. That would have been too good.
You're giving it to them for free, practically, and then you can turn around and neg out the Infiltrator still, nonetheless. Going into the 5-drop, which can only evolve on top of the 4-drop, which is Piccolo Power Beyond Awakening, also blocker. When this card is played, you draw 1 card, switch this card to active mode, and then it gets plus 5,000 power for the turn. Then activate main if you have a Sun Gohan Beast Roar in play, and you switch this card to rest mode, your opponent can't activate a blocker skill for the turn. And that's awesome. And not only that, because you're able to play the 4-drop, still swing with it, and then turn around and place on top of it, it restands it, and then if your opponent, say, happen to have a blocker on board or a blocker negate, it just prevents them from doing it this turn. So even if they were to play one, they can't block with it afterwards.
Bandai is constantly, it feels like over the last 2 or 3 sets, at least since this last format, really done a lot to counteract the power and viability of those token negates, where you would negate, create a blocker token, and then block with it. Most decks have the ability to swing, activate the negate, and then play something and pop the token, rest mode the token, and then in the case of this Piccolo, they can't activate the blocker on the token. So, like, those cards are becoming less and less viable in my eyes.
Yeah,
because of cards like this.
And I'm honestly cool with that. I mean, the staples are good in their own right, but when they start to become like every deck is identity is you have to play blocker negates, it starts to become a little less fun. And these are just really unique ways to get around that form of deck building. And I like the way they're doing that.
Yeah, this is a way better way of doing it rather than just outright banning the blocker negates, because now we're getting into a position where the sparking negates are gonna start coming back into play again, and then that gives Bandai room to start printing more cards like the old King Yenma that would rip cards out of your opponent's drop area.
Yeah.
And then once cards like that start getting more play, we'll go back into the blocker negates, and it'll be this interesting kind of tug of war between those 2 negate classes.
So I'm going to touch base on 2 cards before we get to the Gohan stuff, just because they're there. We have a super combo, which is Fidel, and it's it's the phone, which I think is actually pretty cute, but it's your standard super combo. Nothing special about that one. And then the extra card, Focus Barrage, initially 4 energy, but can go down, be reduced down to 1 for each battle card with SH in its character name. That's for each of your battle cards of SH in its character name, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1. And then it's just an activate main. If your leader is Red Sun Gohan, you draw 1, choose one of your opponent's battle cards, and he gets minus 30,000 power for the turn. So it could just get rid of a problem card. It reminds me of that set 6 card that when they got 25 for 1 energy. I don't remember what the card is top of my head, but it had, I think, Gogeta on the card. But
Transcendent Strike?
Yeah, but this is just for this deck, and you get to draw a card for it. So
And of note, the pan SH that you play on your opponent's side of the field will not count towards this card. So it has to be cards on your side of the field, which I don't think takes away from this card. I think the only thing that I would have wanted to see is maybe this ignore barrier. Maybe that would have been too strong.
Well,
yeah,
go ahead, Nick.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say my main problem with this card is that it's an activate main. Like
Yeah.
when cards exist like Beerus Destroys and the red Realm of the Gods, the Ultra Instinct, like all of those cards are relatively this. You don't have to meet a extraneous requirement. You can play them at battle speed and they also draw you a card and deal with a threat. Personally, I don't think I will be including this particular card in my version of Red Gohan, but I could be very wrong depending on how the rest of the format shakes out.
I think you nailed it. Not having that activate battle really limits this card's utility.
Yeah, it seems to me more like an early game card when you're able to flood the board with SH cards. Because in the way this game is working right now, there is a ton of spot removal. So keeping 3 cards on the board is kind of a big ask. So I don't see this seeing much play, but I like the flavor of the card and the effect is decent. But yeah, there's just better cards you can do. You can use putting this instead of this.
The art's better than the sunglasses.
Yeah.
Debatable.
It would have been nice if 18 was here maybe instead of Gohan or Piccolo.
So
she's not in this episode.
She's in the movie.
I mean, Krilla's not there either yet, so
yeah, that's what I'm saying. That could have been the one card of the archetype that had 18 and Krillin on it.
Yeah.
Then it would have just been an extra, and they didn't have to print,
Starting with the 3-drop on the Gohan, we have SS Sun Gohan All Out Explosion, which, if I recall correctly, one of the ZX cards plays this one for free. Deflect, Unique Barrier. It's staying. When this card is played, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with 15,000 power or less and KO it, which plays for free. That's not bad. Then activate main for 1 red energy. If your opponent has a red pan SH card in play, you can play this card from your hand, which is pretty good. And
that card seems really on par with cards that have been coming out in this iteration of the game.
Yeah, for 1 energy, even if you can't, if this card's coming in, this card's staying for a little bit, but on the off chance it does get removed, just being able to replay it again for 1 is really nice. It seems good enough for me.
For 1 red energy, you could EX Evolve into the 4-drop, which is Sun Gohan Ultimate Power of Legend. It does have to be a red Sun Gohan SH card with energy cost of 3. Auto limit 1. If your opponent has 2 or more energy when this card is played, you draw 1 card, switch this card to active mode, play up to 1 Piccolo bestow power from your deck with its skills negated for the turn, then shuffle your deck. That's good because A, you're swinging with the 15k, then you turn on swing with its 20k, you're playing the Piccolo that skills negate, you swing with that card, and then your leader will restand that Piccolo, and for some reason, if you haven't gotten the Piccolo by any means, that was a Z Awaken, right? When your Piccolo beyond power activates it.
That's the 5-drop.
Yeah. So I mean, but still, getting out 2 additional attacks for 1 more energy, because it doesn't play the Piccolo in rest mode, it just negates its skills. And then you can turn around and just restand it with your other Gohan, and you have for a blocker during your opponent's next turn. This is a good card for 1 energy.
It's really not bad.
Now, granted,
there's a lot of value behind this card.
You do need the 3-drop on the board to play this card for the cheap value, but still, like we said earlier, the 3-drop's hitting the board, it's going to stay on the board.
Is this card going to bring... Oh, sorry.
Oh, and with this card does have interactability with it, since it doesn't have any protection, which is nice. I mean, but it's a 4 cost, so most of the smaller counterplays aren't going to hit it, and it's a 20k, so it's gonna have it's gonna get in pretty easily, and then all you need to do is actually play the card to get the effect off, which is it's gonna be really good.
That's what I was just about to say. Is this going to bring Denial of Hope and Preemptive Strike back into the format? Where we need to counter a 20k?
I don't think so. I think that still, in my opinion, still dedicating 2 energy and throwing off your deck's tempo to counterplay this card, when I would rather just wait for this card to hit the field, let Piccolo hit the field, and then use my skills to remove these cards.
Yeah, because the EX Evolve has no restriction on it, too. So say they do hit they do hit it, your 3-drop's still going to stay on the board because it's barrier, and if you have another one, you can just go into another one.
Going to the 6-drop battle card, which is SS Son Gohan and Pan, Strong Father and Daughter. It's a blocker, and it's able to be played for 1 energy using Activate Battle, which is pretty nice. And if your leader is Red Son Gohan SH card, and you choose one of you or your opponent's Red Pen SH cards with an energy cost of 1, then add it to the owner's hand, you play this card for your hand. So initially, if you have to bounce that Pan back to your hand, you could play this card as a last resort blocker for 1 energy, which I think is really good because it's 24k, and it could say, or you could just play it to get 1 last swing in. You know, if you have to get that last damage put in, there you go.
Seems like a good oh shit button to me.
Yeah.
I don't have any comment on this card. Like, the card doesn't amaze me, but I don't have a critique either.
Does what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
And no,
I can see some sneaky plays with it. Like it's the end of the game. You need to stop 1 more attack, and you know you're about to lose. You drop this, then you get the blocker to save yourself. Or like Bancroft was saying, you need to do that 1 more damage, and your opponent has nothing, but you don't want to pass the turn. You drop this and get 1 final swing in. It seems fringe enough to be okay, but I wouldn't see running a lot of copies. Maybe 2 at most, if any.
I will say,
I guess
with that Activate Battle to play it as a last resort to get 1 more damage in, it's not a 24k, it's a 29k, because you're bringing the Pan back to your hand, turn on the combo with it right afterwards.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say about defensively. It's a good crackback card, too, because you can block, combo the Pan, go to 29, and then assuming that doesn't kill it on your turn, you have a 24k swing.
And with Special Beam Cannon, you can give this guy plus 15k double strike, too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, keep that in mind as well. It's not bad. Going up to 39k double strike is not a terrible swing.
And going over the final Gohan card, which is Son Gohan, Beast Roar. It's dual attack. Its Activate Main allows you to play it, so limit 1 for 2 red energy. If your leader is Red Saiyan card, and you have 4 more energy, play this card from your hand, choose one of your opponent's battle cards. It gets minus 30,000 power for the turn. Auto limit 1 if you have a Special Beam Cannon inherent power in your battle area, and this card is attacking. When your opponent activates a counter skill, choose it to one of your opponent's leaders, and it gets minus 5,000 power for the turn. So it's kind of like you wanted to get my attack, that's fine. I'll get another attack out because it's dual attack. And if you can't negate that one, then you know I'm cracking my field card now. Or not field card, but the Z extra card. Yeah, for 2 energy, popping a card. I'm okay with it not ignoring barrier. We've seen cards that do this, that will get past barrier. It doesn't actually stop counters, but it does hurt your opponent if they decide to counter, though.
The thing that really turns me off on this card is the requirement to have 4 more energy.
I think that's perfect. That's what Sin needed.
That's exactly my point. Is we had cards like Sen, and then in green we have like the Gohan Goku, which can be played on 3 energy for 2 energy, I think. Like,
if your opponent has 3, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's fine. The card is still good. The card's not bad by any stretch. It's just kind of a turnoff for me personally.
Yeah, I mean, I like the effect of the negging on play, which is nice, but this card having no protection, I mean, it can get hit by some counter plays. But, I mean, it does what it does well. I mean, a 30k dual attack for 2 is not going to be bad by any stretch of the imagination. And it's generic enough to work in other red decks if you wanted to run it in that. And then you just get the added bonus effect if you are playing your Gohan, the Special Beam Cannon card. But I mean, it's just, I don't know if this does enough to warrant.
I would say for 3 energy, if your opponent doesn't negate, it's a dual attack double strike 45.
But if we were just talking about the blocker tokens, this is a huge hit to the blocker token, or this is a huge plus for a blocker token, because granted, your opponent's leader is going to get negged, but there's no way to remove the blocker token with this card by itself. So swinging with it again, your opponent's just going to block in.
That's why you want the 5-drop
if you have
Piccolo.
The 5-drop Piccolo on the field, you activate main on that 5-drop Piccolo, they now can activate blocker on that blocker token.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, but I'm looking more at this in just a vacuum, and just by itself it's not enough, because granted that's the play you want to do, but you can't guarantee you get that all the time. And if you're relying on winning with this card in and of itself, it won't do that for you.
And I want to point out real quick, to go for that hit with the 8-drop, if you're playing as someone who knows how to take this, to know how to stop this deck, get rid of the Piccolos, for starters. Do not let the Piccolos stay on the board. Neither of them have any form of protection, and they're blockers. So if your opponent wants to block them, make them expend resources to keep it alive, because if they lose their Piccolo, then like you said, if I do a negate blocker on this Gohan, then I'm not getting touched by this SR at all.
No. And I think you're talking about looking at this card in a vacuum, and I think the card that you most easily compare it to is the 8-drop Red Sin, right? Where you pay 2, and if you have a Z leader, you get a big 30k triple strike. That card also gets dunked on by blocker negates to the point where it doesn't even threaten the token once the token is in play. This card you can at least attack again and force the block. And if you look, like, when I look at this card and I see when your opponent activates a counter skill, choose one of your opponent's leaders and it gets minus 5k for the turn, that to me says that this card is not meant to end the game by itself. The intention is for you to push in with this card, whittle the hand down, shrink the leader, and then come in with your own double strike leader, pop your special beam cannon, and end the game that way.
I think having this card on the field, plus having special beam cannon, plus having your Z leader, is almost functionally equivalent to the current Gohan deck, where they have Goku Gohan on field, and then your opponent has added the secret rare to their hand on the Z leader Gohan. It is almost functionally the same, because if they decide to stop this Gohan, they run the risk of getting blown out of the water by the Z leader. If they stop the Z leader, this card has 2 opportunities to wrap the game.
Yeah. So that's us kind of going over the Gohan archetype. Yeah, cards overall. Yeah, this is going to be a good deck, I feel like. In terms of, I think, I still think maybe Broly's a little bit better than this deck in the end, but it definitely blows out the Goten and Gohan deck. Guys, your opinions before we close this out?
I think this deck has a lot of potential for me personally. I think it's a little over-dependent on establishing the Piccolos, which don't have protection. I think it's a little over-dependent on that end, especially when you get into like complicated board states at the end of the game, where you really want the 5-drop Piccolo to be on the field, plus your 8-drop Gohan, plus this. Like, there's a lot of moving pieces, but I think this deck could be really good. I don't know that it's going to be better than, say, like Green Gohan right now, but it's definitely going to be a good, fun deck to play.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the consistency of this deck. You're going to see the pieces you're going to see. It's going to be really hard. You're going to be hard pressed to brick when you're playing this deck, and that's what you want to see with a lot of competitive builds, just having fun. Like, you don't want to sit there while your opponent plays the game and you're like, oh, I didn't see my 1-drop, so I can't play the game now. And this deck is not going to have that problem. So I feel like it's going to have a pretty good showing initially. And I mean, it's just really good defensive strategies and overall good. I like it.
Yeah. So far, this is probably my number 2 deck out of everything that's been revealed. This is one of the main decks I'm excited for next set, and honestly, I think that the power level, once it's like on the table and the pieces are like working in unison and moving around together, it'll end up being like stronger than the sum of its parts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that too.
So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Keep in mind there's buttons, links, check them out, and bye.